I'll now call Mr. Schiff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, I wanted to, first of all, thank you for the outstanding job you're doing. I don't know how you find the energy, but we're grateful that that you are as good at the job as you are, and my compliments. I want to share a couple of quick thoughts on Egypt and then ask you about Ukraine. I want to share a slightly different perspective than our chair, which always makes me nervous because our chair is outstanding, and when we disagree, it's because I made a mistake, which I only find out about later. But I completely concur with what Cairo has done in terms of cracking down on terrorism within its borders, as well as assisting with cracking down on smuggling into Gaza and on Hamas. I think it's been outstanding. But I'm gravely concerned that they're not only going after the Muslim Brotherhood, but also jailing the secular opposition, jailing journalists, embarking on a campaign of deifying the new military leader. And it looks like we may be returning to the past, going back to another military government. And I think whither Egypt goes, the Arab Spring and the hopes for democracy in the Arab world go. And much as we want a relationship with Egypt, and much as we don't like the Egyptians turning to our Russian, I can't say friends at the moment, nonetheless, I think that we have to make clear our strong support for democracy in the Arab world and Cairo's central role in that, and the concerns that we have that they're deviating from that path. Only tiny Tunisia is a ray of light at the moment. I would urge caution and away from alacrity in terms of assistance. I'd rather be supporting Egypt in their democracy-building institutions than taking any actions that will be viewed not only by Egypt but by others in the region as condoning a crackdown. It would be a return to a policy of supporting authoritarian regimes that are friendly to us rather than their democratic aspirations of their people. On Ukraine, I don't envy your job. Mr. Lavrov tells you they won't violate the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and then they do. Mr. Putin says they don't have troops in Russia, and they do. They both say that they're there to protect the Russian population, which is under no threat. It's clear they're going forward with a referendum and probably annexation under the barrel of a gun, and that more sanctions are going to be necessary. I think it's going to be vital to impose real costs beyond the first round that the President has announced after Georgia and now Crimea. Can you share with us a little of your thoughts on what the sanction options may be? And I know you want to carefully calibrate them and continue to offer an exit ramp, but it looks like the Russians have no interest in heading to the exits, and that further costs will have to be imposed. And if you could share a few thoughts on what that might look like and whether our European partners are willing to undertake them with us, considering we'll have a bigger impact on their economies than ours.
Thank you, Congressman Schiff, and thank you for your generous comments. On Egypt, our best source of leverage with Egypt really has been and remains the international legitimacy that is provided by the longstanding relationship with the United States and the realities, the practical applications that come from the military-to-military relationship, and our ability to act as a convener on their behalf if they are doing things that are constructive and moving down the road to democracy, our ability to bring business and the global community to the table in order to help them economically. We're not exactly leveraging ourselves in terms of our aid. The UAE and Saudi Arabia have committed to some $13 billion. As you know, I talked at length with Chairwoman last year about how much we could take, and I think I took $195 million. And that's all we released. We had a power to release more, But I wasn't comfortable with what I heard, and now borne out by facts, so I didn't release the additional amount, which I'm very grateful to the chairwoman for granting us the authority to do, had we thought it was appropriate. I didn't think it was appropriate, but $195 million versus $13 billion. So it's not our economic assistance that is our lever. It's this relationship. And I think it's important for us to leverage change there. We have spoken out forcefully, publicly, and individually to members of the government about arrests, about the young activists, about one of our employees, other people. And that's why I said to the chairwoman a little while ago, I'm waiting to see a couple of things I'm hopeful can happen. I'm not going to go in with any specificity, except to say that we all share those concerns. President Obama has been very clear about the unacceptability of that sort of move. But there's a delicate balance here. I mean, you know, I'm not excusing a delicate balance with respect to any of those things. Don't mistake that. But at the same time, they are trying to establish stability against violent acts that are purposeful to disrupt the economy, purposeful to go after tourists, purposeful to, you know, undo their ability to stabilize the situation. And it's this very complicated chicken and egg kind of, you know, vicious circle where you've got to get the stability to begin to attract the capital, to begin to attract the tourists. And if you can't do that and the politics stay in turmoil, it's harder to make it work, and people who are keeping the politics in turmoil know that. So you get in a trap, and the question is where and how do you sort of break out of that? Hopefully through good politics, hopefully through the election, through the reforms, through the inclusivity, through the respect for freedom of the press, through the respect for the right to protest, and that will bring people together sufficiently that where there's real, you know, terrorist violence, et cetera, people can distinguish between the appropriate level of law enforcement against that versus the system that's working in other respects. That's our hope, and that's what we're trying to help structure. I know the light's flashing. I just go very quickly on Ukraine. I'm not going to go into all of the sanctions. We've been pretty explicit about visa sanctions, banking sanctions, targeted business sanctions, individual kinds of sanctions. I don't want to go into all of the detail except to say this. It can get ugly fast if the wrong choices are made. And it can get ugly in multiple directions. So our hope is that indeed there is a way to have a reasonable outcome here. I will not be quite so definitive as you have been that it is clear they will, quote, annex Crimea. They may well. But they may have the referendum, have the vote, and not move in the Duma to do the other things. Or, you know, now I hear talk about the potential of secession as an alternative and so forth. That obviously, in our judgment, would be contrary to the Constitution of Ukraine and an illegal act, and I'm not sure that it would be ever recognized under those circumstances. So there are a lot of variants here, which is why it is urgent that we have this conversation with the Russians and try to figure out a way forward. We have exchanged some thoughts. We haven't had a meeting of the minds on that. But we have agreed to try to find a way through the thoughts as exchanged to see if there isn't some way to find a reasonable way forward, and we'll make the best efforts to do that. We have Prime Minister Yatsenyuk. He'll be here today. I'll be meeting with him after this hearing, and then he'll be meeting at the White House, and we will have a better sense from Ukrainians, who, after all, really are the ones who have the choice here, not us. It's sort of what do they feel is acceptable and what do they feel is the way forward.
Thank you.
And we will talk with them about that.
Thank you.